All right, welcome, guys. This is Breakfast with the Brand, the number one podcast in the world for entrepreneurs and leaders who are looking to go to the next level. Of course, I have with me my co host, the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Bobby Stealth, Mr. Bobby Jackson. How you doing, sir? Phenomenal Saturday.
Absolutely. Yes. I'm doing absolutely phenomenal. Today, I've got myself a long run ahead of me. So I'm always excited about those. I get to get in my own head, get in my own mind, and just battle it out. So this Saturday, we do have a phenomenal guest that's battle tested. So I'm super excited to see where that conversation goes. But this morning, I'm phenomenal, Julia. Thank you for asking. How are you?
Definitely. Man, I feel amazing as usual. As long as I'm above ground, I feel absolutely amazing. That's my mental model. That's my frame of reference. Always. Always. Bobby, before we get into it, I do want to send a quick shout out to Shaan. I believe Shaan is flying. You guys would have noticed that he has not been on the show for a couple of days. It's because he's taking care of a few other brand related stuff. So he's flying right now and he's unable to be here. But definitely want to send a shout out to him. And also, I want to send a shout out to everybody looking. Like all of you have been absolutely phenomenal, especially this week. I've been more present this week, and I've noticed so many amazing people, like Mr. Bradley Hoover, who's just commented. So phenomenal morning, Bradley. Guys, listen. If you're listening to us live, go ahead and put it in the chat. Where are you listening in from? Where are you listening in from? I know Bobby, check this out. The last time we had people from Africa, we had people from the UK. We have people from all around the world. So let us know where you're listening in from. I'm officially in the Caribbean. Okay, St. Lucia to be more specific. But if you're Caribbean, we're Caribbean. That's it. All right. So today's show, guys, we had to bring him back. Like Bobby, there's no point trying to hold back who the guest is. Once we say strategic leadership, everybody already knows. So I'm not gonna hold him back. I'm gonna bring him out right away. The man, the myth, the absolute living legend, Mr. Joel D. Smith. Let's bring Joel in. Let's bring Joel in. Let's get the show started. All right. Mr. Smith, phenomenal morning.
Grand rising to all. Good morning. How are you doing?
Absolutely amazing. How about yourself?
Hey, I woke up. I got oxygen in my lungs. I got blood flowing. I got my muscles working. Hey, let's get it.
That's right. That's right. Listen, today's conversation, we're gonna dive into three topics. And I'm gonna, be introducing them as we go along, but I really want to touch on teams. Okay, guys. So if you're a business owner, you have a team. Okay, so having a business doesn't mean that you're doing everything yourself. Okay, it means that you have competent and capable people, riding with you that could assist you on the journey, that could help you perform tasks. You have your what Sean calls your exponential zone, which is where you exist, right? And then you have other people in their exponential zones as well that is also helping you to drive and to move forward this business, which is yours. So today we have the honor and the pleasure, of having Joel teach us. Okay, and I really mean teach because I have my pen and my paper, and it's trust me, it's loaded, it's locked and loaded, ready to go. He's gonna be teaching us the secrets, the keys to applying strategic leadership to teams because one thing that every leader needs is obviously a team. Now, we're going to go to a break in a few minutes, but before we do, Mr. Bobby Jackson, do you have anything that you'd like to say to the audience?
No, nothing other than this is one that you don't want to miss. Share this out. Get locked and loaded. Get your coffee, get your tea, get your water, whatever you're drinking this morning, because the topics that we have on the docket are very interesting and they all work together. So this is one of those ones we just want to stay tuned. That's all I got, Junior.
That's right. Let's grow.
There's slow growth and then there's scale. There's incremental growth and then there's exponential growth. What I want to talk to you about is adding a zero to you and experiencing exponential scale. Incremental growth says 1 plus 1 is 2. Exponential growth says 1 plus 0 is 10. Incremental growth says 2 plus 2 is 4. Exponential growth says 5 plus 0 is 50. Guys, listen, when you add a 0 to you, you can add a 0 to the marketplace. You can add a 0 to the value that you bring. So you can add a 0 to your family, add a 0 to your legacy. This is what we're talking about. We're not talking about incremental, we're talking about exponential. I always say that business is a spiritual game. Just imagine when you combine your skills, your values, your abilities, your talents to something bigger than you, something greater than you, something like the power of exponential. That is adding a zero. Add a zero to your competence, add a zero to your confidence. This is about adding a zero in your life, your value, your industry, and your mission. Let's grow. In brand clarity, exactly what you're going to get is what it sounds like. Clarity for your brand. What is your color? What is your logo? What is your unique value proposition? Who are you speaking to? Why? How should you speak to them? How should I position myself? That's what you're going to learn in brand clarity. You need other people to have the same clarity on your brand that you do. But this is the gap. If you don't have clarity on your brand, then no one else is going to have clarity on your brand either. It's like messaging. Your message sounds clear to you, but is your end user receiving the value that you're trying to provide? I guarantee you that after you go through brand clarity, they will, and so will you. And that's how you'll scale your brand.
All right, guys, so we are back. And before we get into it, I do want to send a quick shout out to all of the phenomenal ladies. You know, yesterday was International Women's Day. So this technically makes it International Women's Weekend. Okay, so if you're a woman and you're celebrating, I want to send a quick shout out to you. We absolutely love and appreciate all women from all around the world. And we want to make sure that we recognize you in your special time. All right, so let's get into it, gentlemen, shall we?
Let's do
So,
it.
Joel, I know we've spoken so much about leaders, you know, over the past couple of days. One thing we cannot forget is that leaders need teams. Like, if you don't have a team, how can you be a leader? Now, there are different levels of leadership, as we know, okay? And we know that you've ascended to some of the highest levels of leadership, which means that you have other leaders that you lead, and then those leaders lead teams. So my question to you is, what is the role of senior leaders as far as the development of high performance teams?
Well, to begin to answer that question, first off, we need to define what is a role. Before I define what is a role, like you said, we have different layers and different levels of leadership. Strategic leaders cannot function without their senior leaders. And that's pretty much where we're going to focus today's topic on. But those senior leaders also have leaders that are downstream, down echelon from their locations that help out, that they trust and lean on too. But what is a role? It is a structured and standardized, institutionalized pattern of behavior. In simple terms, leaders who lack understanding of their role expectations in the organization risk failure, meaning their roles are illegitimate or they fail to fulfill the expectations of their legitimate roles. Well, in order to have the role, it needs to be clear. What do you have in most organizations that you go to that you're applying for? You have a duty description, you have a job description that you're looking at. That's the first thing. A clear understanding of what your job description is. So when you come into the organization and you have that initial one-on-one counseling with your boss, whether it was military or in the civilian industry, that is one of the key things that needs to be clarified from the onset. What are your job descriptions? What are your roles? What are the expectations of me in those roles? By having that clear, senior leaders are able to instill a sense of trust among the rest of the organization. They're able to communicate effectively to achieve goals, and they promote self-team development to improve the organization's overall performance. That's number one. So some key elements that within those roles that senior leaders must have. Besides building trust, they have to be able to effectively communicate. Effectively communicate also means being able to listen attentively, being able to come forward and speak, being able to speak with clarity, being authentic in your words and the things that you share. This also goes back to your trust, because by speaking clearly and being very concise in what you're trying to do, it improves team cohesion, leading to better collaboration and overall performance again. So you see how one ties in to the other.
Yeah.
It continues on. And what I'm using is the core values of the organization that I'm looking at: trust, communication, self-team development, and ethical leadership. Continuing in those roles, senior leaders must prioritize not only their own self-development, but they need to support the development of their team members to enhance the organization's overall performance. This includes identifying areas of improvement, working with them to continuously improve the organization, whether it is, okay, you need to go take this class, how about go get this certification, a certification, for instance, Lean Six Sigma, green belt, black belt, getting certified in HR, a certain function within HR, things that are going to enhance and improve the overall performance of an organization. Lastly, because you've done all these things, you've built trust, you're communicating effectively, you're investing in your own self-improvement, you're investing in the improvement of your team members, we get into the ethical leadership. Leaders, senior leaders must lead by example. They must uphold the organization's ethical values. By doing so, they create a culture of ethical value. The culture of the organization is what's going to truly drive the organization. And if that culture is built on ethical behavior, again, it's going to build trust and it's going to maintain a positive reputation for the overall organization.
Wow. So many notes, guys. So many notes. Put some flames in the chat for Joel. Put some flames in the chat for Joel. And I wrote down a couple of things. A couple of things that really stood out to me was, prioritizing self-development and the development of the team. Must lead by example, because as you know, and I always say, you can't give somebody something that you don't have. So you can't give somebody something that you don't have. So you're trying to push your team to do better, or trying to tell them what to do, but you've never done it, or you're not even trying to do it, or you're not self-developing. That's absolutely crazy. But I love the fact that you said they must uphold the standards of the organizations, which basically means, like, everybody has standards, right? So I have my own standards, I have my own thoughts, my own opinions, but it's not about me, it's about the organization. And there's a gap and a space there, right? There's a gap and a space there, that makes it non-personal. Because I remember yesterday we spoke about having tough conversations, and one of the things you said is that, don't make it personal. It's just business. It's not personal. I may absolutely love you, I may absolutely admire you, but this is what the organization is doing. And I love that. So, what about you, Bobby? What is your question as far as senior leaders is concerned?
I think this is a very excellent topic because the senior leader oftentimes has a lot of blind spots. And they have all these blind spots because they're operating at such a high level. And a senior leader has to be able to instill trust, confidence, and also a degree of, we say it this way in the Marine Corps: take care of the Marines and the Marines will take care of the mission. So where I want to go with this is policies, procedures, and standards, but I just want to lay this out is senior leaders have to protect the people that they lead so that the people that they're leading will protect them. And because senior leaders have so many blind spots, I think having a stand-up character is essential. I believe one of the greatest qualities a senior leader can have is humility, because they're going to make mistakes and they're going to be caught by subordinates at times. And when I say caught, I mean called out, so to speak, or in a position where they can be corrected. And when you are a senior leader with a lack of humility, then you become, in my experience, a dictator or authoritarian, and you try to confine your, or rather you restrict and constrict your team's ability to perform. And this often comes from the team being afraid to speak up because they're looking at you like a tyrant. So as we move forward and you think about your business and you think about who you are as a executive, who you are as a leader, I want you to think about, how do you show up when you make mistakes? Because all leaders make mistakes. And without strategic leadership, and I believe without this right character and brand of leadership, you can make the wrong mistake, try to cover it up, or force it to hurt the team, and find yourself without a team that respects you. So my question to Joel is this: how have policies, procedures, and standards helped develop senior leaders? Because we all start as followers to some degree, but we are developed over time. And what standards of development, policies, and procedures have you seen that people go through and successfully come out on the other side as better leaders, stronger leaders, and leaders that are ready to, so to speak, fail at times, but maintain the respect and honor of their teams while also maintaining integrity and confidence?
Great question, Bobby. The number one thing for me is understanding that we're all human. Being human, you are destined at some point in time, no matter how much you try to abide by the golden rules or by the 10 commandments or anything else, you're destined at some point in time to make a mistake. The thing with making mistakes is you don't want to keep repeating the same mistake. You want to grow. And the one thing that the military was good about, and when you went through basic training, undoubtedly the drill sergeants knew right off the bat you were going to make some mistakes. In fact, they set you up a lot of times to do just that, make some mistakes. Because what did it do? It provided teaching moments. As senior leaders and as strategic leaders, you're always in a learning mode and you're always in a teaching mode. We spoke about this previously. Being a willing follower also leads to being a successful leader. So before becoming a leader, success was all about building who? Yourself. After becoming a leader, success was all about building who? The team. And it's a reoccurring event. It keeps going around in a circle. So understanding, one, that we're human, that we're going to make mistakes. Just as you found in the military and as you see in a lot of organizations, a lot of corporations, there are some mistakes that go against the organization's values. The Marine Corps, the Air Force, the Navy, the Army, all of us had values. Things like trust, respect, selfless service, honor, all those kinds of good things. Does each individual know, and have they instilled those values within themselves? Because though you're not working in the company 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, when you step outside the company and you're doing your personal things in life, you're still a part of that organization. How many times have you seen things take place in the media where a soldier, a sailor, a Marine, an airman, or a CEO has done something outside of the organization, but instead of blaming the individual, we blame the institution?
Right.
In blaming institutions, right, wrong, or indifferent, is not fair to the institution, but the perception is, because this senior person did it, this is widespread across the institution. So there are some mistakes. We know you're going to make mistakes, and mistakes can be corrected, hopefully, and people learn and grow from them. But there are some mistakes, like we said yesterday, that there pretty much is no recovery from. We had this old saying, all those attaboys, all those good jobs and everything that you did can get wiped out by one. Just wipe the plate clean. I'm sorry. So it is something that each organization, each leader, each strategic leader has to weigh individually. But as a senior leader and as a strategic leader, you have to keep in mind the human factor. There is no zero-sum game, because if you have a zero-sum game, you're pretty much not going to have an organization.
Yeah. Wow. And I completely agree. The reason I like this topic is because everybody that's watching this that is a CEO or owner of their own company, you are the senior leader, not a senior leader, the senior leader, unless you are, so to speak, in an organization where you've hired a CEO and maybe you're sitting on the board. But in other instances, you're the senior leader commanding everything. And the question then becomes to you, and this isn't another question for Joel, but just for you guys to ask yourselves as you leverage some of the insights that Joel is shared, is how do you want to handle mistakes in your organization? Because in the military, we've had the Uniform Code of Military Justice, so the UCMJ, or
Hmm.
yeah, UCMJ, and then we've got counselings, negative counselings, positive counselings. You've got all kinds of different ways to annotate and try to correct these deficiencies when they happen. So that's just more of a forward-looking thing for you all that are at that level. Like you're doing the multiple six figures, maybe, or you are coming from corporate and you've got the investment capital and you're trying to staff an organization immediately out of the gate. How do you plan to, I don't want to use the word chastise, but that's probably a better word than just saying how do you want to correct, because chastising has to do with a forceful or almost reactive consequence to something that was derogatory. And when that happens, you want to be able to chastise in a way that uplifts the organization's standards, its morals, values, principles. And then as you do that, you want to be able to do it in a way that maintains respect of you as the senior leader and also builds the leaders that you want. Because if they stay with you and you're chastising them, then they're going to be a byproduct of what you've pretty much instilled in them. So this is a very interesting conversation to have and a great thought experience to have if you're serious about scaling or bringing in staff members, team members. So thank you, Joel, for those insights.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir. Great question, Bobby. And I have another question for Joel with regards to senior leaders. When I consider everything you said, Joel, and that's so true, because just recently in my country we had something very similar happen where somebody who belonged to, a certain organization, they did something, it made it to the media, and I find it very impressive from the audience though. They said like they were able to separate the individual from the organization. Like they were able to say, okay, this is this guy doing his thing. This is not the organization, right? But most times people don't do that. And when I'm thinking about, well, what really creates that accountability in and out the office, there's one word that really comes to mind, and that word is culture. That word is culture. So my question to you is, how like what is the role of culture, number one, within an organization, and how do senior leaders foster the culture that is wanted within the organization? How do they proliferate that culture in the organization so that when people go on the outside, they can still maintain the standards that they got on the inside?
Culture in an organization is everything. It's paramount to the overall success and direction that the organization is going. If you have a negative culture, or you have a hostile culture, or you have a low motivational culture, the organization itself is going to wane and falter and potentially fail. Where you go in and you see positive cultures, where you see innovative cultures, or you see cultures where individuals are allowed to think outside the box, the paradox, the paradigm thinking, those cultures, those organizations tend to thrive. Google, for example, they have this thing and have done it for many, many years, where they will allow their people to take a certain amount of time, whether it's 20 minutes, 25 minutes a day or whatnot, to work on or research or refine topics that are that have caught their eye, that they could potentially bring to the organization. So you're giving free time during the time of your work day to actually work on something else that you could bring to the table that could potentially propel the company, the organization even further. That culture, that ability to have some freedoms, the latitude to go forth and look at something else speaks volumes to the trust that the senior leaders, the strategic leaders have in their people. So they've developed a culture of ultimate trust. Hey, no, everybody knows if you give an individual a computer to sit in front of them when they're not actively working or they're just bored, of course, we might surf the web. Some ladies and gentlemen like to do a little bit of shopping. And, you know, I used to walk around even in the military and even at some of the airlines I've flown with, and you'd see computer screens where somebody's just looking at a shoe sale, or somebody's looking at new suits, or somebody's looking at a barbecue grill or a drill and all the above. Is it realistic to say that that is not going to happen at any organization? I don't think so. Again, now we get back to the zero defect versus the zero sum game. Is it a defect? No. Well, if you're spending 3 and 4 hours shopping when you're supposed to be at work, that's a problem. But if you're taking a break, or somebody happened to mention, hey, there's a sale going on, and you take 10, 15 minutes to go in and look at it, I would venture to say that most organizations won't take that as you're wasting company resources or time. Again, there's that little bitty fine line of, is this habitual, or is this a occurrence that takes place every now and again? And a lot of organizations have the software and the data capability to see what their employees are doing on their computers and how they're utilizing their time on the computers and on the internet and all the above. So there's ways to monitor. But being able to, Google's willingness and understanding that this is human nature, that sometimes you have to let folks do something outside of the normal, mundane, day-to-day task, built up their culture. It built up their trust. It built up their ability to innovate, to seek out, to go search out and bring new things to the table.
Yeah, that's amazing. Guys, listen, we're going to go to a quick break. When we come back, more on the role of senior leaders within organizations. Stay tuned.
From Harriet Tubman to Sojourner Truth to Rosa Parks, we have always been on a freedom run. Your LLC, your S Corp, C Corp, your business entity is what's going to give you the ability to go from your job, your industry wages, your 9 to 5, to the life of your dreams and the dream of your life. This is about you attaining all of the things that you could only possibly imagine and that our ancestors saw as not even being possible. Your freedom run? This is your freedom run. This is your moment. We're going to show you how to establish yourself as a business entity so you can go and come as you choose. There was a time when we needed permission slips to go from plantation to plantation. When you get a little bit older, you need permission slips to go from class to class. And when you get a little bit older, you get a vacation for 2 weeks, and then you have to come back after 2 weeks to your job, right? That's what they call it now, the 9 to 5, the gig. You might you work for 50 weeks and you get 2 off. The freedom run is when you establish your LLC and you're free for the rest of your life. I don't talk theory, I don't talk hyperbole, I don't talk opinion. Nothing I talk is anything but evidence-based.
During the G-Circle retreat in Atlanta, I had the pleasure and the honor of listening to Mr. Shaan. He will not only impact your organization, but he will elevate your team to another level.
When you change you, when you put you into the equation, the whole system is different. I guarantee you, you got the right thing. You are the right person. If you can present yourself in the best way possible, there's no negotiation.
His energy is infectious, and I have so many takeaways from the presentation that I can't wait to get started and implement them today to see the result.
All right, guys, so we are back. Of course, this is Breakfast with the Brand, and I do want to recognize a few people who I just noticed in the chat. By the way, this is 100% live, so if you do have a question for Joel, then now's the time to ask it. Put your question in the comments, and we will get to it. But I want to send a quick shout out to Lawana Bradford, and I also see Vanessa Zamora. Shout out to you, phenomenal Saturday. And of course, it is International Women's Weekend. So shout out to all of the amazing women looking. We absolutely love and appreciate you all. So Joel, before we went to the break, you gave an excellent breakdown there of how companies create cultures by implementing various different little things that I guess on the front, it doesn't really seem to make sense to a lot of people. Like I remember the first time I saw the inside of Google, I noticed like there were playrooms and there's like this huge globe and all kinds of stuff going on there. And I'm like, this is super interesting. There are like beds so people could have a nap if they feel too tired. There's all kinds of stuff going on there. And then later on, when I started to understand, organizational culture, then I understood why would an organization do that. Like on the front end, it's counterintuitive, but when you break it down in that way, it makes all the sense in the world. So I'm gonna pass it over to Bobby to see what Bobby has on the subject. Bobby, what do you have for Joel as far as that is concerned?
I'd like to share a story that this reminded me of when we talk about culture and we talk about judging the institution based off of its constituents. So I remember the PX. So those of you all that don't know what a PX is, that is like a convenience store on base. And at the PX, you have this thing called proper civilian attire. Now, proper civilian attire says that you've got to wear a certain attire when you go inside of public places on base and outside of the base. So as Marines, we are charged with the directive, you are a Marine 24/7. Marines are not allowed, were not allowed when I was in, to have tattoos that were bigger than the hand. If you could not cover the tattoo with the hand, you could not wear it. All these were a part of the brand, a part of the image, a part of the culture. But this particular story was really taking senior leaders and reinforcing the organizational culture. So we were starting to have a lot of Marines just popping up either in the Walmarts and Targets and the PXs, and they were having facial hair on their faces. If you're a male Marine, no facial hair allowed whatsoever. We would see people in flip-flops. If you were a Marine, you can't wear flip-flops when you're out. We would see people in beach attire, small little shorts, half of their behinds is hanging out. It's not allowed, not proper civilian attire. So what did this military do? Our section. So what they ended up doing is they ended up putting staff sergeants or senior leaders, staff sergeants, gunnery sergeants, mass sergeants in front of the PX like gatekeepers. And as people would come to the PX, we'd say, nope, not proper civilian attire. Bounce. Didn't care what their rank was, didn't care who they were with, wife, kids, the rest of your battalion, bounce. And that is a way of creating, fostering, and protecting the company culture. Because what we say in the Marines is that the senior leaders are keepers of tradition. And the traditions are the various things that were cultivated over time to distill the culture. So I just wanted to share that with you all to say, don't be afraid to reinforce and enforce the company culture when you're starting to see deviation, because that was small to some people. Flip-flops, it's just flip-flops. Well, the truth is, it's flip-flops today in garrison, meaning in the civilian world, but then you didn't put a critical component on another component and you got rounds going down range in a combat zone. It's the small things. And when we don't protect the culture, and when we don't enforce and reinforce the company's culture, ethos, and the traditions, we really find ourselves in an interesting spot. So for Joel, I just wanted to share that story with you guys so that you can, maybe recall an experience when you were in a situation where you had to protect your company's culture, or at least your institution's culture, and how small it might have seemed at the time, but how, in fact, now that we're having this senior leadership conversation, you see how important it very well may have been.
I agree, and the cultures of the military versus the cultures of the civilian side is different. One of the key things I think we need to go back and emphasize is defining culture. Katrina has put something out there and says culture, a set of values, norms, guiding beliefs, and understandings shared by members of an organization and taught to new members as the way to feel, think, and behave. Well, as Bobby so eloquently put, the Marine Corps, the Navy, the Air Force, the Army has a very unique way of establishing and enforcing the culture. The downside of all of this is the world is changing.
Yes.
We have gone into what used to be the 9 to 5 that everybody was used to. In the service, the Army had a commercial way back in the 70s that used to say we do more before 5 before most people do all day long. And to the degree that is still true to this day. The difference is where I grew up with the baby boomers and the Gen Zs and the Gen Y and the Gen Xs and all the different generational gaps is the mindset of the country, the mindset of organizations, the mindset of institutions is changing. And I will say it's changing, it's adapting to a number of new ways of thinking. What's it, for instance, future work. Before COVID hit and everything that was taking place, you were still going into the office. COVID hit, everybody wanted to stay home or had to stay home and was working from home. COVID has lifted. Now organizations and factions are having difficulty bringing people back into the office. They've gotten used to working at home and, hey, I can do just as much on my computer sitting in my robe as I can getting dressed up in my suit and tie and these heels for the ladies and these hard sole shoes for the gentlemen and coming into the office for 8-9 hours. So as a strategic thinker, some organizations are capitalizing on this, going to 3 and 4 day work weeks, changing up where folks are working on the weekend because they would rather have a couple of days off in the middle of the week to do things that they need to do. So the ability to adapt and change and adjust the culture is becoming more paramount. I'm not subscribing to any particular way of doing things. What I'm highlighting is that culture sets the values and norms of an organization. Strategic leaders and senior leaders have to be able to think and adapt on the fly to stay viable and to stay relevant in their vertical. Leads us right into the competencies of being strategic leaders or senior leaders. This is basically broken down into 3 competencies: conceptual, and that is basically thinking skills needed to understand and deal with a complex and adverse world. Conception. We just talked about culture and how culture is changing across the entire spectrum of organizations and institutions. As a senior leader, can you think through and adapt and see how you can make adjustments within the overall culture to continue to move the organization forward? Technical skills. This is the second one. Senior leaders need to be competent in applying those technical skills and organizational resources to move the organization forward. The last competency that senior leaders should have, and in my view must have, and is probably one of the most important, is interpersonal. Being able to develop, like we said earlier, not only yourself, but your teams, your organizations. And a lot of times that requires you having some good negotiation skills. You know, when Bobby and I came in, or especially when I came in, or when some of the other service members who are on board looking right now came in, you didn't get to negotiate with your drill sergeant. You didn't get to negotiate with your platoon sergeant, your first sergeant, your commander. When somebody said do something, you know, the part where I said do it, that was where the conversation ended. It wasn't non-negotiable. It wasn't negotiable. It wasn't up for discussion. We live in a democracy. This here is a dictatorship. I said execute. Roger that, salute the flag. You went execute. The only time you didn't is if it was a questionable order that could put you in a position where it wasn't lawful. I couldn't just order you to go out and rob a bank or shoot somebody or all that other good stuff. That's not a lawful order. And in those cases, you could deny or refuse to carry out the order. Most times, when first sergeant said do something, when the platoon sergeant said do something, heck, when the squad leader said do something, if they were ranking and they had rank over you, you executed it without question. We're in a different world, in a different mindset. You can't take that rigid culture and put it into a civilian industry. You could, don't know that it will work out well for you unless you have a lot of retirees from the military that come in and that's what they're used to, but that tends not to work as well in Fortune 500 companies or in organizations, even down to, let's say, McDonald's or Wendy's. I can't just come in and be a dictator. I can give direction and I can give guidance and I can give orders, but I have to learn how to talk to people. There is a time to elevate your voice. There is a time to, okay, let's stop playing. Let's get after it. And then there's a time to understand that each one of your individuals in your organization respond a different way. So for me, of the three competencies that you need, conceptual, technical, interpersonal is the most important because it is the most dynamic, it is the most fluid, and it's the one that changes the most often.
Wow. Wow, that you just gave us a clinic there, Joel. As usual. You know, that was actually going to be my next question, and you already answered it. So we have conceptual, we have technical, we have interpersonal skills. Now, I want to sort of flip the script a little bit. I know we've asked you, we're about 45 minutes in, we've asked you a lot of questions, but I also know that you have questions for us. So we want to give you the opportunity to ask your questions now.
Yes. I had to write my questions down to catch up with these gents here. The first one, as we're talking about the building of organizations and moving forward, the one things that attracted me to this organization, the Shaan Rais company, and the things that you and Bobby do is the skills that you bring forward. In the marketing space, one of the hard things that I've heard you all say time and time again is mining. When you use the term mining, you know, a lot of folks would think, okay, I'm out here searching for diamonds and gold and all the above. Well, in fact, you actually are. Those diamonds in the rough, the gold is those clients. And I'm looking to build clientele and build base. So how can market mining techniques be effectively utilized to identify new potential clients and increase my market share in the business?
That's a phenomenal question, Joel. Phenomenal question. So let me phrase it like this. My because I have philosophies and I have, you know, different models that I use as well. My model for marketing, it goes based on truth. I believe that you have to go based on truth. So what do I mean by that? Like whatever you do in business, it has to go back to the truth. So what that means is that if you want to target someone, ask yourself, and let's look at this logically. So let's say I want to target a specific person. Well, number one, you have to know who you want to target. Okay, now the challenge for most entrepreneurs is they don't exactly know who that person is. So if you ask an entrepreneur like who's my target market, they'll say, well, my target market is a woman from New Jersey who's 45 with two kids and she's married. That's typically the answer, right? But the way I look at it is, what is the slither of truth that I can find that's already out there that I can leverage to give me real-time data? So for example, if I wanted to sell golf clubs, the first thing I would do is I would look at my competitors, like who's already selling golf clubs. Now, how does this relate to truth? The way that this relates to truth is that if you have somebody who's selling golf clubs and people are buying, it means that that person or company, they're already saying something that's attracting that market.
Hmm.
Think about it. You want to sell golf clubs, they're selling golf clubs successfully. And as we know, success leaves clues. It means that there's something in their message, like whatever they're saying something that's making sense to that audience. So what do? You look at what they're doing, okay, and then you reverse engineer what they're doing. So what is the hook that they're using? What is the title of the ad? What is the message in the ad? How long is the ad? Who are they addressing in the ad? And you could literally pull out or mine, like Joel is saying, you mine data based on other successful actions. So the easiest way to develop a target market profile is to literally just look at who's already selling what I want to sell. So if you want to sell, let's say strategic leadership, which Joel is, so that's Joel's business, strategic leadership. The question becomes, who's already in the market that's already selling strategic leadership to organizations, and what are they saying to them? Because it's quite obvious they're saying something that's working. Otherwise, they would be making money. I see money as when it comes to business, because money is not everything, obviously, but when it comes to business, money is like the ultimate sign of truth. So there's a saying, the market is the market is the market. It means that if you're making money, there is some slither of truth there, because people pay for the exchange of energy. It means that if I'm giving you my energy, if I'm giving you my money, it means that I'm getting value, I'm getting some kind of utility. So I would look at who's already successful, what are they saying, how are they saying it, and who are they saying it to, and very, very important, where are they saying it? Okay, so marketing has three pillars. Pillar number one, the market. The market is the audience. The market is the who. So you have to know who you're talking to before you talk to anybody. So if I'm in a crowd with, like, let's say a concert and I'm on stage and I want to talk to chief financial officers, I would have to get up on the mic and I would have to say, calling all chief financial officers. If I just say, hey, I'm looking for you, everybody turns around, or most of the time, nobody turns around. But if I said, hey, attention, all chief financial officers, all of the chief financial officers, they turn around. So you have to call out that audience. So number one, you have to know the audience. Number two, you have to know the message. So the message here is, what is the hook? What is the thing that they are looking for? What is the thing that will get them to click? You have to know what that is. If you don't know what that is, it's like trying to sell a steak to a vegan. You're like, hey, vegan, buy my steak. Vegan look at you like you're crazy. So you want to know what that message is. Now, once you have the right person, you have the right message, the next part that a lot of people don't get right is you have to have the right media. So media means, where are you placing that ad? So there are multiple forms of media. There's television, there's radio, there's email, there's direct mail, there's social media. People think media is social media. Social media is only one form of media. There's cell phone, there's text message, so if you're dealing with people that are a little bit older, more seasoned, they may not like social media. They may prefer to actually read something that's actually physical hard copy. They may prefer a book as opposed to an ebook. You have to know the audience and you have to know What is their preferred style of communication? How do they prefer to get their message across to them? Like, do they prefer to read the newspaper, or do they prefer to go online? Do they prefer to get an email, or do they prefer to go on YouTube? You have to know what that media is. And once you have the right market, you have the right message, you have the right media, it's impossible for you to fail. It's literally impossible. It's not possible. Mathematically, you cannot fail because you're talking to the right person, you're saying the right thing, and you're talking to them in the right place. And that's what we look at. So the way that I do that is I look at what is the truth. Now, businesses giving people what they want when they want it at a reasonable price, not giving them what I want, giving them what they want. And that requires us getting to the bottom of the absolute truth. So is if you're in business, which everybody viewing right now, your market is already buying. Like your audience is already buying from someone. Figure out who are they buying from and why are they buying from that person? What do they like about their solution? What do they don't like about their solution? And what, most importantly, what is that person saying to get them to buy, and where are they saying it? And once you figure that out, you'll be absolutely phenomenal. You'll be in money. Hope that answers your question, sir.
Wow, that was absolutely powerful, and it absolutely did answer the question. It shedded a lot of light on how to tackle something that is already out there. You know,
That's right.
there's nothing new under the sun. We didn't come up with new. The fact that marketing exists, we didn't come up with the strategy for wealth. We didn't come up with for coaching or branding and all the above. It's already out there.
Right.
It's taking it, adapting it, and adjusting to find your place in the market. I love it.
100%. 100%.
Can I transition over to you, Mr. Bobby?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Got one question for each of you. This one I know is probably on the mind of a number of people, especially new startups, new entrepreneurs, people that are trying to just get started, whether they're coming out of the military, coming out of college, wherever they're coming out of, or trying to leave the workforce and start their own. Funding. The question I have is, what are some creative ways for businesses or entrepreneurs to gain financial support without sinking themselves into a dynamic hole right from the onset?
Excellent question. So there are three ways that you can finance a business traditionally. You can bootstrap the business, you can debt finance the business, and you can equity finance the business. Now, if you're a startup, you're looking to achieve proof of concept. Proof of concept says that this product, this value proposition, or this service has viability, desirability, and feasibility. One, it's viable. I can build a business model around it that works, meaning that when I sell it, when I put it in the marketplace and do everything that is required to make money, I can sell it at a profit. Like, that's how I know it's viable. Feasible says that I have the resources right now or readily available to execute the necessary actions to achieve viability. Desirability says there is a current demand for what it is I'm trying to do. So when we talk about creative ways to fund and finance a startup, we have to understand what we're trying to do. So when you're funding a startup, you're not necessarily trying to fund a startup. You're trying to fund proof of concept. You can also think about this as speed to market. You can also think of this as the build, measure, learn cycle. So funding is misunderstood by a lot of people, and that's why so many people get it wrong. They think that they're supposed to be funding their business. You don't necessarily fund a business with bootstrapping capital. You fund a business with either borrowed capital or equity financing or revenue, because you have to scale and grow a business. But when you're starting a business, you're doing what we call burning runway. So you have a set amount of resources. So if you were to borrow money and you say, hey, sinking my teeth in, going into a ton of debt, the thing that a lot of people mess up here is that they think that they're supposed to be growing their business with their startup capital. That is untrue. You're supposed to be achieving proof of concept with startup capital and then achieving revenue, initial revenue, and then achieving MRR, which is monthly recurring revenue, and then taking monthly recurring revenue as proof of concept and proof of viability with the business model that you're using, and then going to acquire capital. Most people try to acquire capital before they have a proven business model or before they have achieved proof of concept. And when you try to do this, you end up burning through all of your money and not being able to get funded because you're not able to achieve what we call the bridge round. So bootstrapping bridges you to debt financing, and debt financing often bridges you to equity financing. So a few definitions here. Bootstrapping is taking your own money, savings, retirement, what have you, and investing that cash into your business. Debt financing says that you're going to a lending institution, be it conventional or non-conventional, and you're borrowing money at the interest rate with the expectation that your return on investment is going to exceed the interest rate, and the speed in which you get that return on investment is going to justify the amount of money borrowed. So when you're doing the bridge, what you have to be accounting for is, do I have enough startup capital, bootstrapping capital to get to proof of concept? And do I have a go-to-market strategy and a speed to market strategy that is efficient enough for me to, one, build, measure, learn, achieve proof of concept, and then get to a position where I have monthly recurring revenue that will justify a lending institution lending to me before I run out of startup capital. So we call that runway. So runway simply means this is how much money I have. I've got 6 months of runway, 12 months of runway, 18 months of runway. What that simply says is I've got this amount of money that is being ran against this amount of expenses and this amount of uncertainty. And if I run out of money before I achieve proof of concept and MRR, then I'm not going to be able to bridge. And if I can't bridge, I go bust unless I can get more money. So because we're a minute over already, I'm going to pull this to a close and tell you guys this, a few creative ways to do it. So bootstrapping is extremely simple. You want to borrow, you want to take money that you have either in an investment account or in a retirement portfolio, whatever you have, and you're pretty much looking to get to 18 months. If you can't get to 18 months, shoot for 12. If you only have 6 months of runway, you need to most likely try a low overhead, easy to penetrate market that's going to get you proof of concept as quickly as possible and then get you in a position to borrow money. So again, if you only got 6 months of runway, the fastest you're looking for a low overhead opportunity that you can go to market with immediately and achieve proof of concept. You're likely not trying to do something that is extremely novel. You're trying to do something tried and true. If you're bridging to debt financing, what you're looking for is to, if you want to be creative, is CDFIs, which are community development financial institutions, LOCs, lines of credit. Another way you could do this is a HELOC, a home equity line of credit. And these are all ways where you're not necessarily using credit card debt and you're not necessarily taking on a large business loan, but instead you are doing what I call microfinancing. You're taking on a HELOC, which means you're taking the equity out of your home and then you're betting against that equity to scale the business. So you're borrowing against money that you've already made. So that's debt financing, but it's only a debt, so to speak, if you, one, don't make the additional payments, which could be looked at as a second mortgage, or two, you run out of money, can't make the payments, and they foreclose on the home. However, if you are able to make all the payments and you get speed to market quickly, you can leverage that very effectively. So those are some creative ways to do debt financing. Some creative ways to do equity financing is safes and convertible bonds. So a safe is a simple agreement for future equity. And what that means is you can find an investor or a venture capitalist, and you're pretty much saying, how I don't have proof of concept yet, but I've got some letters of intent, meaning people are saying they want to buy from me. I've got a concept out there and I've got a prototype, and the prototype is gaining traction, and you're showing that prototype in the form of a pitch to various investors, and they're saying, hey, I will agree to fund you today for a future equity stake in the future once you have achieved certain milestones. And then you've got convertible bonds. So a bond, if you are familiar, is something that you have to pay back at certain coupon dates. So a bond could say, hey, I issuing you a bond that has a coupon that must be paid every 6 months, or a coupon that must be paid 3 or 4 times out of a year. A convertible bond says, hey, I'm giving you this money, and it is a bond, meaning you do owe me this money back, but it can convert into equity if you get to a certain stage in your business, a certain bridge round fast enough. And what that says is I'm taking on a debt financing entry point, but it can convert to an equity financing exit point where I don't have to pay the money back at all. So those are 3 approaches, 3 bridges, and a few insights.
Wow, that was powerful. That was a lot. I've got 2 pages and I couldn't write fast enough, so I'm gonna have to go back and look at this again to get the full impact of the words that you just shared. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Phenomenal.
All right, guys. So this has been an amazing episode as usual. If you notice the banner to the bottom, there's a banner there with a link where you can contact Joel Smith for all things, strategic leadership related. So in other words, if you have an organization that you're looking to take to the next level, go ahead and contact Joel D. Smith by using the banner below. We're going to keep it up for a few minutes so you have the opportunity to see it. But of course, Joel, this has been an amazing conversation again. I still have so many questions for you. So we have to bring you back another time. We will bring you back. The questions just keep coming. Every time you answer one question, another question presents itself. So I guess leadership is a topic that we can talk about forever,
Yeah.
but it's been amazing as usual. Of course, Bobby, I definitely took notes on everything you just said there about funding, and I hope the crowd took notes as well. All of the information is priceless. So guys, before we do leave, I just want to say once again, happy International Women's Weekend to all of the phenomenal women. Have an amazing day. Guys, before we sign out, is there anything that you'd like to say, Bobby or Joel?
I would end with, I'm rarely people's favorite guy to talk to, but please talk to us. And when I say us, I mean CFOs, financial advisors, individuals that know money. Because at the end of the day, it takes money, so to speak, to make money, but it really takes investments if you're trying to grow and scale a business. And I know a lot of the words may be foreign, a lot of the things may sting because you're like, oh, what? I can't go to Shark Tank. That's not how it works. No, that's not how it works. But the best thing you can do in that situation is get with someone that knows what's really going on so that you don't lose your money, lose your company, lose your shirt.
Thank you.
As far as me, understand that in life, just as in business, it is an investment. And in order to succeed in both, you sometimes have to invest in you. This was a lot of information and a lot of great information: marketing, wealth, leadership, all the above. Can you master all of it? You most certainly can. But when you're trying to grow, when you're trying to expand, when you're trying to blow up, sometimes it's prudent to get help. To get help, you have to invest.
That's right.
And understanding that you have to invest. That's why I asked the questions of Bobby and Junior, trying to get at what are some easier ways to assist startups, budding entrepreneurs in getting themselves to a position where they're not trying to learn everything that we've just put out today and do it yourself. Task overload, and it's a quick way to drive up your stress level and create angst and all kinds of anxieties that will decrease your ability to function at your optimal level. This has been great. I enjoyed it. Thank you for having me, and I'm always willing to come back anytime you need.
Thank you so much, guys. This has been another Breakfast with the Brand. We'll see you again next time, same time. Let's grow.